where the emails originated from and how the laptop ended up at a shop. Both of those details seem to have been authenticated. The second is this important and accurate information that you should have access to when factoring in who you might vote for? Well, according to many in the media, the answer is no. You should not be hearing these details. You should not be reading these stories. You should not devote any minutes of coverage to these Hunter Biden stories. This is what went down on many mainstream media outlets over the past several days. ABC, 0 minutes of coverage. CNN, 0 minutes of coverage. NBC, 45 seconds of coverage. CBS and MSNBC both stretched their legs into a little over 4 minutes of coverage in a 92-hour period. Again, is potential influence peddling important to how you decide this country will be run? But more importantly, perhaps, should you even be allowed to factor that into your decision-making, Jedediah?
Yeah, I don't even know what world we're living in anymore that you can't ask a question. A story like this comes out, your gut reaction should be, all right, let's figure out if it's true. Let's dig in instead of let's push it to the side, hope it goes away, or let's ignore it, or frankly, let's believe everything in it in second one. So there's just a lack of interest that's really concerning in terms of getting to the bottom of the story. It's an election season. I get it. It's close. Everyone wants to stay in their political lane, but it does a huge disservice to the voters when you don't ask the important questions. And I did notice some journalists even took heat. They were just retweeting the story itself without commentary, and they took heat for even doing that on social media, which is absolutely absurd. If you go directly to Joe Biden, though, it's interesting what he had to say. He was asked about this story in particular on Friday, and this was his response.
Mr. Biden, what is your response to the New York Post story about your death?
I know you'd ask it. I have no response. It's another smear campaign. It's right up your alley. They're the questions you always ask.
I have no response because I don't have to ask because they won't press me on it, and I know they're my friends. And it's another smear campaign which won't be proven by the so-called mainstream networks because they won't cover it. Here's what we know. Hunter Biden dropped off a laptop. The contract he signed said 90 days later it's not his property anymore. The guy who had it at the shop turned it into the FBI and made a copy and has it. We also know that these emails have been confirmed by people who received them as well as valid. Will, you mentioned the two questions, and they're right. I'd add a third. What did Joe Biden know? How involved was he? These emails refer to, I got to get 10% to Pops or 50% to Pops. In multiple emails, he's referring to his father, clearly using his father's leverage to get the access and the money. Joe Biden said he didn't know anything about it. Was this guy just running around like a vacuum cleaner, sucking up the fumes of his father's vice presidency? Or did Joe Biden know exactly what Hunter Biden was doing, or at least enough tacit knowledge to know that, hey, he's making some shady deals, and I know that if he asks for a meeting, I should probably take it, and we'll call it informal, and just the meeting itself is enough to solidify more money for Hunter, and maybe some money shows up in my account. I don't know. But those are the types of questions you would want to be asked of someone who wants to be the leader of the free world, staring down Ukraine, staring down the communist Chinese. That's what the New York Post put out there. That's what they laid out. And it wasn't hacked material. This guy got the material through the laptop that was forfeited by Hunter Biden. It's all excuses to suppress it. I believe we have the cover of the New York Post this morning. It says, "Twit for tat." And what has happened to the New York Post now is their Twitter feed has been suppressed until they delete their own reporting. I can't think of anything more dangerous than a social media company blocking a publisher, the fourth largest newspaper in America, saying you can't tweet anymore on your own reporting until you delete your own tweets of your own reporting. It's unbelievable. So, well, I think that's why when you look at these tech executives testifying, will we get answers? I don't know.
Joe Biden's role in this scandal is obviously center to the entire issue. When I bring up two scandals, when I break it down into two different areas, what I'm talking about is this. The actual content of the scandal, of potential influence peddling, is one scandal. What might be the bigger scandal is the suppression of information from the American voter, from the American consumer. Twitter, Facebook, social media companies not even allowing you to know about this story might be the biggest scandal involved because it means we don't get full information on our decision-making in this country. The Republican National Committee has now filed an FEC complaint against those big tech CEOs. This is what they said. As of this filing, Twitter's engaged in arguably the most brazen and unprecedented act of media suppression in the country's history, and it's doing so for the clear purpose of supporting the Biden campaign. Democrat media consultants can only dream of such abilities through its ad hoc partisan oppression of media critical of Biden. Twitter's making an illegal, corporate, in-kind contribution as it provides unheard of media services for Joe Biden's campaign. An electorate, Jedediah, has to be informed. We're watching information suppressed.
Yeah, it's not their job to decide what we should and shouldn't see. Sometimes it seems arbitrary, and sometimes it seems highly agenda-driven. And it's getting very hard to tell, guys. You know, what deserves being flagged? Oh, if it's this type of source, it's no good. If it's that type of source, it's okay. And it seems to always fall on one side, where you want that information suppressed when it comes to one political side of the aisle and issues that may hurt them and not the other. So this is deeply disturbing, especially because social media emerged as a vehicle to go straight to the people, right? Those stories were supposed to bypass, you know, many mainstream media outlets, and it was supposed to go straight to the people where you get a lot of your news these days. Many people don't even turn the TV on anymore. They pick this up. That's just a hard reality. And they scroll through, and that's how they get their information, or lack thereof. That's the problem. Senator Marsha Blackburn was on earlier. She weighed in on Section 230, on big tech censoring, and more. Listen to what she had to say.
What we are looking at is Section 230 and the reforms that are going to be necessary for Section 230. Now, this deals with that liability protection shield that big tech has been hiding behind and censoring, using to censor conservatives, censor many of our entertainers. And this is one of the things that our legislation, the Online Freedom and Viewpoint Diversity Act, which Chairman Wicker and Chairman Graham have each joined me in this legislation. What we would do is turn that shield back into something that is transparent by saying, here is when you can use it, here is when you cannot use it.
We know exactly what this is. It's utterly predictable. We remember the after action from 2016. A lot of these tech companies were browbeat for allowing Donald Trump, allowing Republicans to actually be a part of the conversation, and they effectively said never again. And when we showed the graphic last hour of 99% of the donations given by Twitter employees are to Democrats, they're on hyperdrive to suppress anything that would help, anything that would hurt Joe or anything that would help Donald Trump. But this past week, in addition to the conversation about the presidential election, of course, Amy Coney Barrett did a fantastic job testifying, and they really had nothing to bring at her. But what became part of the conversation was Senator Feinstein, who's the ranking member, and the chairman is Lindsey Graham, and this exchange that they had at the committee hearing where they hugged, showed some collegiality, and the left is going after Dianne Feinstein for befriending Lindsey Graham and not going hard enough on Amy Coney Barrett. Will, we talk about cancel culture all the time. How quickly it can happen to someone who's been a part of the Democrat establishment forever, now she's not good enough.
There is no protection from cancel culture. No. There is no one who is safe from woke political correctness. There is no party that you can belong to. You must parrot ideas, or we're going to rename the schools that have been named after you. That's the current movement in San Francisco right now, to rename Dianne Feinstein elementary schools. Fall in line. That's all you need to be that's all you need to understand. Fall in line is the message over and over.
Yeah, it's parrot the line that we accept, that we want you to parrot, or be excommunicated, so to speak. And it's really disturbing. If that's the state of affairs in 2020 when it comes to politicians, when it comes to politics, we're all in trouble, because that means that no one can have a nuanced thought. No one can deviate ever. That real debate and discussion is not welcome anymore in American politics. That's the whole purpose of American politics, is to figure stuff out. And we're not going to, the same way we do on this show every day. We figure stuff out. We talk to each other. We go back and forth. Sometimes we agree. Sometimes we disagree. We count on lawmakers to do that, and they're responsible for policy. So it's even more imperative that they be able to sit across the table and hear each other out. That should be celebrated, not condemned.
Yeah, and let's remember, the only reason the hearings this week were civil is because Amy Coney Barrett is a bona fide Boy Scout who they had nothing on. And if they thought they had anything, they would have made it about that. Instead, she just held up her empty notepad and said, I don't need notes, you do. Next. All right, turning now to your headlines.
That will help ensure more long-term balance and stability.
My youngest daughter is transgender. How will you, as president, reverse this dangerous and discriminatory agenda?
Joe Biden answering questions from two voters with ties to high-profile Democrats at his town hall on Thursday, including one who previously worked as a speechwriter in the Obama administration. Here to react to the growing backlash is former Clinton strategist and chairman of the Harris poll, Mark Penn. So, Mark, you see this stuff and it's deeply concerning because you want to believe that these town halls exist to give regular people a chance to voice their questions, and that's not what's happening in many cases. Is this a big issue?
Look, newsflash, every campaign tries to get favorables into their town halls, and then some people who are favorable try to get in. I don't think this is a particularly big issue. I think a bigger issue is a poll question we had recently where we asked people, is the press easy or hard on President Trump? 65% said hard. And then we said, are they easy or hard on Joe Biden? And 65% said easy. So I think the disparity of treatment overall is really the big issue. And the public sees that and is wondering, can they rely on the media anymore, given this disparity in the questions they do and the things they set up? I think that's the big issue.
But the problem is that it looks strategic, and it very well may be strategic. But the reality is there is a difference between a Republican or a Democrat voter asking a question and a Republican or Democrat that's been in politics and been a political operative for many years and has a very specific political agenda asking a question. Is it not a distinction? And oftentimes the audience isn't aware of that unless cases like this are divulged.
Well, of course it's a distinction. I mean, obviously in these town halls, people are presented as kind of spontaneous, average voters who have been selected. My point is that on the other hand, we have a cynical electorate that also realizes that more likely than not, the voters participating in these things are not. And in fact, it's very hard to find really neutral people, in a race where under 10% are undecided.
Mark. But honestly, Mark, if that's the case, then the whole thing is a sham, right? Then why do it at all? Because the whole point is to get to the heart of voters. And if you're just trying to strategically place people for a political agenda to say this or that, that's not a town hall. So let's just call it what it is now. Let's just get rid of the town hall altogether and say this is an event for strategically chosen operatives for political campaigns. Proceed.
Well, Trump had people who were favorable to him at his.
I'm saying, on both sides. I'm saying this is not about just Democrats. I'm saying on both sides.
These town halls are not, look, isn't it better to have a press that asks, good questions about, about the issues than it is to try to set up a town hall? Look, sometimes we've had some good debates with real voters when they're really screened well, but I think either of these hastily put together events for that.
I hate to interrupt you. We have to wrap, but love having this conversation with you and hope to have more coming up. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you.
Coming up, we've got Joe Biden admitting that he made a mistake when he backed the 1994 crime bill. But is it
bill was a, quote, mistake?
Was it a mistake to support it?
Yes, it was. But here's where the mistake came. The mistake came in terms of what the states did locally. What we did federally, we said it was, and you remember, George, it was all about the same time for the same crime.
Our next guest calls his acknowledgement meaningless. Here to explain Black Voices for Trump Advisory Board member Dr. Carol Swain. Doctor, always love having you. Thanks for being here. He didn't just vote for this bill in 1994. He was one of the leaders of it, yet he's saying it wasn't me, but, just a mistake.
Right. He helped craft that bill. He worked alongside segregationists to write the bill, and it's part of his long history on race, which has been far worse than anything that President Trump has been accused of doing when it comes to race. Joe Biden is responsible for the disparity in how crack cocaine and powdered cocaine was treated, and as well as the sentencing guidelines that made it difficult for judges to adjust sentences or for people to get parole.
Help me out here, because his answer was confusing. He basically said, well, the states messed it up. Well, the Biden campaign tried to clarify what Joe Biden was saying, because none of us could make sense of it. And this is what they said. They said VP Biden was talking about the 86 crime bill. That's the one that included mandatory minimums for drug offenses. In fact, the 1994 crime bill did not, which was what VP and George were discussing. So 86 or 94, he's still a senator, still pushing it. What are they trying to explain away here?
Well, first of all, that Joe Biden has called the 1994 crime bill the Biden bill. So he's responsible for that bill. And as part of that bill, people that were convicted of crimes had to serve 85% of their sentence. And so it did make it more difficult for people to be paroled, and it also pushed the buildings of more and more prisons. And so when you build prisons, you have to fill them up. They were filled up for the most part with racial and ethnic minorities, black men and women. And these are the people that the Democrats are saying, trust me, trust me. And President Trump's First Step Act passed in 2018. That was the correction. So Joe Biden is a bit late. He's always late. And he can't excuse away or explain away his involvement. It's the Biden crime bill.
Yeah, it's his record. Absolutely.
Right.
Doctor, I have to ask you about this second story. You know about what happens in academia when it comes to the proliferation of bad ideas often. The University of Minnesota has now started a 12-step program on recovering from whiteness. It's in the Minnesota School of Social Work. There's 12 steps. Here's 4 of them, and we got to get your take on this. We picked just 4, not to go through all 12. Acknowledge how white supremacist teachings are integrated into our minds. Step 5, confess mistakes and failing. Step 6, deconstruct previous ways of knowing. So white kids or any background goes into this class and they're told how bad they and the entire system is? That's the course?
Well, first of all, the critical race theorists, and that's critical theory, it argues that if you're born with white skin, you're a white supremacist. You need to divest yourself of your whiteness. And so now they're treating your skin color as a disease, And it is disturbing. And I think it's probably a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. And the discrimination that's taking place now under this social justice, I believe that people need to push back against it, regardless of your race, whether you're white, black, Asian, whatever. This is not good. This is un-American. We have to stand up to it. It's not acceptable to shame young white kids. If it's wrong to do to black youth, it's also wrong to do to white youth and white adults. And for people that are going along with it, you're wrong. You need to stand up to it.
Yeah, as my friend Will Kane has pointed out oftentimes, we've stopped treating people as individuals, and now we want to lump them back into groups for things that they can't affect and go backwards as a result. Dr. Carol Swain, thank you so much for your insight on this. We appreciate it. All right, still ahead, President Trump campaigning in Wisconsin today. So what will it take to win?
Now we're going to bring in Sean Duffy, former Wisconsin congressman and Fox News contributor, and our friend Rachel Campos Duffy, Fox News contributor and the host of Moms on Fox Nation, which is one of my favorite shows to watch on Fox Nation. Welcome, both of you. It is so great to have you both here together. Amazing. We've been waiting for this.
Hey, guys, good to be with you, too.
We've been waiting, too.
Yes, and it's great news, Sean, that you've joined the team and on a big news day. And the next 17 days are going to be intense, so glad to have you here. We're looking at President Trump's upcoming campaign stops. And if you take a look, we're going to show them on the screen. But the place we want to talk to you about is Wisconsin, which is your home state. What are you hearing on the ground in Wisconsin? It's a pivotal state, obviously. A lot of eyes are going to be on it in the next few weeks. What are you hearing from voters right now?
So first of all, in Wisconsin, like around the country, there's incredible enthusiasm for President Trump. I mean, the week that President Trump got coronavirus. He was supposed to be in Janesville, Wisconsin. He's going to be in Janesville today. But what I think is happening right now, if you look at the week of the debate and you look at the week of coronavirus for President Trump, he was cascading in the polls. That was the same week as Billy Bush in 2016. And since that time, President Trump has been coming back. And I think that the factors that, the Joe Biden tapes have come out, which has angered those independent and reluctant Trump voters, as well as
I mean the Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden, yes. Thank you. God, Rachel's here, right? But also that Facebook and Twitter is censoring this information has really angered people. And on top of that, Joe Biden wanting to pack the courts, I think, has made people think maybe he's not a moderate. I think he's really a left winger. All those things together, I think, is creating a surge for President Trump in our state. And many people are writing this race off like in 2016. This is far from over. I don't think people are picking up the enthusiasm gap on the two sides of the aisle.
I want to get to that.
Or the ground game. I just want to quick note the ground game. So the Trump team is going door to door. I keep saying this. There are no Biden people going door to door. They have made a decision that because of coronavirus, they're not even going to put on a mask and hit doors. Both of us know doors work, and that's why Trump has been able to identify more voters, persuadables, and I think that's going to make a difference on the ground.
And he's talking to them.
Yeah.
Sean, it's great to see you. We're glad you're out of CNN jail. We're very happy that you're here.
Thank you, Pete.
We love having you here.
It's good to be home.
Absolutely. And Rachel, thank you for being his translator. Needed at times, not often, but we're glad. I got to get both of your take on this. This is a headline from Axios. It caught my eye. It said, Trump's advisors brace for loss. Point fingers. There's anonymous sources in here saying, hey, the polls look bad. We're not feeling very good. How does that, and you've mentioned it a little bit, but you know people involved in the campaign also, as well as the folks in small towns and across Wisconsin and across America. What's the real story about how people are feeling about the race right now?
So, in my opinion, the campaign looks at this and is like, it's really close. It could go either way. And so the thought that the campaign is, trying to CYA and, basically anticipate a loss is absolutely not true. Yeah. There's still a great deal of optimism with the Trump campaign. Now, one of the problems we have, Pete, is, the Republicans, the Trump campaign they're getting outspent like 5-1, 6-1 in Wisconsin. Yeah. And I love that Democrats complain about dark money and money in politics and big banks and corporations putting money into politics. But the bottom line is Democrats are aligned with big business and they get all this cash. And Republicans are raising money from small donors. But it has really mattered for Democrats to get Joe Biden's message out on the airways, which is why it's so important for President Trump to do these events in states, because when he does that, he gets statewide local coverage and gets his message out that way.
Can I make one point, Pete?
Yeah,
I think conservatives are making a mistake in focusing exclusively on big tech censorship. I think this story is a story about corruption first and foremost, and it is a story, I think, that has affected our foreign policy. We now know why Joe Biden said, oh, the Chinese, they're not bad people. Now we know why he said that. He was making money off of this. And the emails are damning. I know you talked about that earlier today. And so I think big tech censorship is huge. It's a long-term problem. It's something we've been dealing with for a while. But as conservatives, the main, and as Americans in general, the main issue and the main reason we need to get this story out right now is that this is somebody who is compromised in his foreign policy.
Yeah.
Rachel, you and I hosted this show together a few weeks ago, and I don't remember, you'll have to forgive me, is it 7 or 9 kids that you and Sean have? It was a lot. I just remember it was a lot.
9. 9. In fact, I just texted them because I heard little feet above, and I said, stop making noise.
9 kids, I think, makes you both experts on any topic when it comes to parenting, so I have one for you. Pete accused me a moment ago of almost losing my mind on this, so I'm going to try to ask it very neutrally. Disney Plus is adding negative depiction disclaimers to movies like Peter Pan and Dumbo to curb stereotypes. This is what Disney is saying about those types of films and the disclaimers that will come. This program includes negative depictions and/or mistreatment of people or culture. For the life of me, Rachel, I don't know that I've ever seen Dumbo, by the way. I can't remember offensive things in Peter Pan, but I don't know where we're going here. I don't know where we're going with continuing to censor everything.
So listen, I looked at this. I'm okay with, first of all, I want a disclaimer on Robin Hood because that was definitely very pro-socialism, and that was a 1953 movie. So we could do this all day long. I think the main thing is, how far does this go? Is it just a disclaimer? Are they going to start taking out scenes? Are they going to censor it altogether? Are we not going to have a Peter Pan ride at Disney anymore? These are all questions we have. And I think, are we raising kids to learn from history or to just be offended by everything, and so we have to whitewash everything and take it away so their feelings aren't hurt? And also, I think what's important is that Disney has a group of advisors who are helping them decide which films. And if you look at them, they're very left-leaning groups. It's GLAAD, the LGBTQ group. It is the Black and Asian Film Critic Association. I see no one from a more traditional parenting group that's also advising, because we know that on Disney Plus they also have these sitcoms that are tackling a lot of sexuality and gender issues, and so I don't think anyone on the traditional side is advising Disney, and that's something parents should be concerned about.
They should get the AARP to advise, because in the 101 Dalmatians and Cruella de Vil and ageism, or Sleeping Beauty and the Old Wicked Witch, AARP has to advise on ageism with Disney movies as well.
That's a good point, Sean. Very good.
It's all fair play.
Yeah. We actually have a statement from the Walt Disney Company, and this is what it says. These stereotypes were wrong then and are wrong now. Rather than remove this content, we want to acknowledge its harmful impact, learn from it, and spark conversation to create a more inclusive future together. Disney is committed to creating stories with inspirational and aspirational themes that reflect the rich diversity of the human experience around the globe. So essentially now, I guess it looks like they're not going to remove content or censor it, but just provide these disclaimers. Your reaction?
But the translation is, that may be true. I don't believe it. I think it's always a slippery slope. But the translation is also, don't worry, every other movie we do moving forward will be very woke.
Very woke.
Yep, that is the standard. All right, Rachel Campos Duffy, Sean Duffy, we love seeing you. Let's do it again soon, maybe next weekend.
Good to see you guys.
Anytime, guys. We love you guys.
We love you. Appreciate it.